Drift cars get wrecked. They're light, powerful, and they're driving on the edge of catastrophe at pretty much all times on the track. So knowing this, we've made sure to build our drift Ghia as robust as possible. Now, of course, spinning out on the track means that all sides of the car are in danger of damage. So whereas it's kind of impossible to make the car 100% impervious to damage, there are major components that cannot be damaged or you're gonna lose a track day. For example, the cooling system. The cooling system needs to be protected. Now, as you can imagine, driving sideways has the pretty big chance of hitting the rear end of the thing, especially the side of the quarter panel right behind the wheel. It's very common to ride it up against the walls, or if you spin out, hit the wall tail end first. In a previous video, we already reinforced the front of the car with a light bash bar. This bash bar is not to mitigate all damage, it's just to mitigate the heaviest part of the damage to ensure that the intercooler is protected and some other little bits. But with the rear end being in a more dangerous location with spinning around, we want to go a little bit beefier. You see, the only components in the back of the car other than the obvious wheels and suspension is our transmission, the rear-mounted radiator, and the fuel cell. But the fuel cell's more inboard, so it shouldn't really be an issue, especially since it's within the cage. Because this vehicle is a body swap, we have a Porsche 944 Racecar chassis underneath the skin of a Karmann Ghia. It's really important to keep that 944 in one piece and safe. If the body takes damage, we can fix it, that's not a big deal. But if the chassis takes damage, we can still fix it, but that's a track day ending, whereas we could just pull the body off and keep driving if we really needed to. So what I want to do this week is make a really robust rear bash bar. It's going to be more complex on the front, and it's also going to have the taillights for the car. Now, because this is a drift car, it's a track car only, it does not need to have taillights, but I think it's going to look really cool if we come up with a cool design for taillights. And we're not going to use these holes that are in the body. We're coming up with a new way to make these lights, and I think we're going to mount them to the bash bar. I feel like most great projects start with a good plan and a good vision, so we're going to use Shaper 3D, who coincidentally sponsored this week's video, to visualize what our bash bar is going to look like, and we'll use the program later on in the video as well to help make flanges and other 3D objects that are going to be printed out for this project. Shaper 3D was designed for an iPad, so it works really well in a tablet form, which makes roughing out 3D concepts on the shop floor actually possible and very quick, especially when you're working in a team like Tony and I, where we both have differing opinions sometimes of how something should look, and drawing its sketches on paper doesn't always translate well. The other thing I picked up immediately with Shaper 3D was that it is different than other CAD programs. The workflow is a little different, but in a good way because it's very beginner friendly. Rather than giving you a menu full of tools that you could potentially use, which most of them don't even apply at the time, it only shows you the tools that you can actually use when you click on different parts of your object. So if you click on an edge, for example, it gives you the option to chamfer that edge. Whereas with other programs, you might have to dig through 3 menus to find that chamfer, and you only know it's there because you've done the research to find that tool. So anyway, what I did here was I came up with a really rough layout of what I think this bash bar should look like. Of course, this is not gonna be something I 3D print or use like a CNC plasma notcher to cut the tubing. This is just for layout, that's it. We're gonna use the software later on in the video for actual functional parts we 3D print and cut out with our water jet. The idea is to have a jack point right here. We triangulate it across these 2 main tubes, and then we have this wraparound here that'll wrap around the bottom of the quarter panel to the wheel well. I think that baseline should do pretty well with protecting the rear of the car, so let's get to work. You can see where the hose size doesn't match my duct part I made. That'll be remade and fixed, don't worry. First thing we need to do is to figure out how we're going to mount this bash bar to the 944 chassis. We have these frame rails right here, and that's where we're going to go to, but I need to decide if we're gonna go underneath the frame rails because they're kind of high, or if like in the front, I'm gonna angle downwards a little bit, but I don't wanna angle too much because then it's gonna be a weak point that could snap in an accident. Let's say you're about 350 millimeters off the ground for center of that tube in the front. Let's line that up on the back. Something like that. So this right here is the same height in the rear as the front for the bash bar. So this is the center line, which will probably be the lower tube on that design. You'll notice also that it's a little bit higher than the metalwork here by like, I don't know, like an inch, inch and a half. So I'm gonna be trimming this back to probably about here to match the tubing, so there has to be room for the tubing as well, but that we'll get there eventually. What's mainly important right now is, if this is the bottom of that setup, so I mean the top will be probably about here. Even that top edge here is below this rail. It's at the bottom edge, which I don't like. So I'm probably gonna have to come up with a way to triangulate where it bolts in the bottom here, bolts back here with a plate, and then we like have two tubes that come together and meet in the middle down here. Let's cut out some plates to mount to that attach to the frame rails and go from there. All right, we got these plates here on either side. I have 3 Clecos in them for now because I'm not 100% sure how I want to mount it. Probably nutserts. I think 3 nutserts in a row with some like M10s or M8 bolts. Should be plenty strong on each side. The other problem with the Clecos too is I think them hanging down here is going to be in the way, so I might swap them out for sheet metal screws just for mock-up for now, and then we'll switch them out for nutserts, so that's how I go. The other thing we need to do is deal with the parachuting in the back. The exhaust air from the radiator mounted in the back here needs to go somewhere. We're going to have a duct around it to help it funnel a little bit, but also it needs to bleed out the back. And what we decided we want to do is put some big old holes across the back of the car, which means number one, I need to get rid of this license plate cutout. I do not like it. It's stupid. I'm probably just going to plate it over, so we'll cut it out, put a piece of metal over there, weld it in place, and then after that, we're gonna drill big holes, probably 4 across the back, and then also we need to make a relief cut for the bash bar to come through the body. I'm thinking this time I'm just gonna do like a pill cut from the bottom, and to come through and have a whole slot from the very bottom, have it just go to nothing in the bottom, rather than having a hole, because then the body can just be set down on top of the bash bar without removing the bash bar. I think that'll be handy, especially with the whole wiring going to it for the rear light. Having to remove the bash bar the least as possible would be best. So yeah, let's fill in that license plate hole first. Oops. So I was just gonna fill in this piece here, but as you can see, it's a complete mess, because originally a Karmann Ghia rear deck lid or trunk goes the whole way down here and wraps around, and then somebody else had capped it off shorter. They just welded it shut, you know, and left the piece here. So it's a mess. My intention is to have holes in the back of this car, along the whole length of the back, for air to come out, along with the holes that we need for our bash bar. Upon further investigation, these holes are gonna look absolutely terrible if I just hole saw holes into what's currently here. We're gonna deviate a little bit from the bash bar quick, and I'm gonna make this rear body panel. We're getting close. This needs a much more shrinking on the edges. Oh yeah. That's much better. Alrighty, that looks a lot better. Let's do a laser across the bottom to find the flange. We'll flange it over and sand it down, and then we're gonna cut the excess metal behind it that we don't need anymore. What a mess. I'm glad I cut that out. This thing is hefty too. So the rear body panel was finally made, and it looks so much better back here, and now I have a nice blank canvas to work off of. I'm very happy about that. So the next step here is to figure out where these tubes are gonna come through so I can slot the rear body panel, and then we're gonna make our bash bar. I decided to slot the rear end this time, so it goes the whole way down to the bottom here. I'll reinforce these lips so this is a little bit stronger at the end. For right now, we're just getting our layout and we're gonna make our tubing. So this way then I can leave the rear bash bar on and lift the body off like I think I mentioned earlier in the video. And also these two yellow lines. So this is gonna be the lower part of the bash bar. This is gonna be the upper part of the bash bar here. So yeah, I guess it's about time to start building a bash bar. Actually, hold up, one more thing to do. I need to cut off the tips of the quarter panels here on both sides so they match. And then it's time to make a bash bar. And there we go. Quick and easy. First thing I need to do is make the tubes that mount back here and run up through the slot here. The idea we came up with is to have two tubes coming through to make it extra beefy. So the idea is I'm gonna have one coming from back here. It's gonna angle down to this line right here. And then I'm gonna have a second tube that's gonna go on the faceplate here like the front of the car is. And then come straight through to here. And then where they come through, they're gonna mate to the upper and lower parts of the bash bar. I'm going to plate the ends off. I'm just gonna cap them off both sides. And then we're gonna have a mounting tab that we can mount the tube to that will run down through to here. It's about 130. Upper tubes are tacked into place and poking through, and they're also coped on the end for a straight across tube. So now I'm gonna do the upper piece that runs from here to the other tube. It's gonna extend a little bit past, and then I have a pie cut to angle down to the lower beam. So we're gonna do some math to figure out the angle of that cut. We're gonna cut the tube, and we're gonna clean it up and tack it in place. This tube's gonna be the base to build off of, so I'm gonna laser level it, and then we'll measure down from that to the lower level. 60 should be pretty good. Gonna take a quick break from the tubing because there's another thing we need to make, and I have to 3D print it. So I wanted to print while I'm continuing to work on the tubing on the car. So the idea is to use this LED rubber hose style lighting for the rear brake light. I chose this because 1, it's affordable, 2, it's fully enclosed, so it's sealed to the elements, and 3, I can trim it down to size. And it's 12 volts, which will just wire right into the system when we do all our ECU work. The challenge is, so they sent these really crappy tiny plastic clips that kind of hold the rubber tubing to whatever you want to mount it to. I'm not gonna go that route. Instead, I want to design little half moon clips that go to the tubing of the bash bar. So the idea would be to model this little half moon clip that goes onto this tubing right here, so it's the right size to clip on, and it has a little standoff of that rubber tubing to slide into as well. And I can just do it intermittently down the length, and we could shape it along this tubing. And it'll make a lot more sense later in the video. I need to model this now so we can start printing. So we're gonna hop on Shaper 3D again and do that. Caliper. 31.8, let's do 32 to be safe. New project. All right, that looks great to me. Let's 3D print it. Just gonna go ahead and airdrop this to myself. There we go. Easy like Sunday morning. Just gonna print one here first to see that it works, then I'll print a batch. All right, well that prints, let's get back to it. The upper bar is in place now. I cleaned it up with a DA because it was just so rusty and gross, and I think it looks a lot better with that nice matte finish. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on the bottom bar, which is gonna be a lot more complex. This upper bar, as you can see, is just a straight line, which I know straight line on a curvy car looks weird, but trust me on this, guys, this is gonna look cool when I'm done with it, because the idea is for the bottom bar, I'm gonna roll it and have it curve, and they're gonna kind of complement each other in a certain way that I think will be very pleasing. This car is supposed to be a balance of curvy and eloquent, and also aggressive with some straight lines as well. It's gotta be a balance. We're gonna tiptoe that line a little bit here. So up next is the really complex part, which is the bottom bar.
Hey Ryan.
Hi, you're back.
I'm back.
You're finally here to help me hit this batch bar on the last day.
I've been back, but now, yeah, I'm gonna just show up at the end, try and get a little credit, and you know, really help you out.
I'm sure you won't disappear again before the end of the video too.
Yeah, that won't happen.
This contraption here is not a wheel to a boat, but instead a wheel to a boat. What's that called?
I just call it the roller, tubing roller.
No, the wheel. No,
oh.
the wheel to a boat.
I'm
potato braining it right now. Yeah. There's a name for it.
Yeah.
But we're both idiots.
Yeah.
Hey, boat guys, tell me how I'm dumb and what it really is called on the boat. But anyway, this is the Harbor Freight roller that we never use that sits in the back corner of the shop. It gathers dust. I swapped the dies out for these beautiful rusted dies we have that fit the diameter of tubing we're gonna do. We're gonna be able to roll the tubing in this, and it should give it a nice smooth curve. We could use the tubing bender, then it'd be like bump, 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 and that would look kind of weird. So we're gonna try this thing first, see if it still works. The goal is to have between this point and this point to have a nice curve to it, and then we have a bend and then straight tails. So we don't need the roller to do the entire tube. Instead, we have marks here, so we're gonna roll up to the tape here, And then the other end of the gate's here. So we're just gonna roll the segment in the center and give it a guesstimate curve. We're not gonna measure it.
Yeah, we don't measure.
I don't. Bring it to port, Captain. Is there curve to it? Oh yeah, there's curve to it. Yeah, it's working.
All right, good.
It's working. We got a little bit of curve. Maybe Tony doesn't come over here anymore because I make him do manual labor every time he comes over. This was like one of those 4D movies. This is be coming out the screen at you right now.
Oh my gosh. Let's give it a check.
Before we wreck ourselves.
Yeah. You ready? Did we go too far?
Don't hit me in the shins. All right, now just stay there, and I'm gonna build everything else, and then you can just hold it there.
Just hold this.
Yeah.
You build around it.
Yeah. All right, so now I'm going to use the bender, and I'm gonna bend the tails on this. And Tony, now I'm gonna tag you in. You can make the standoffs that go from the base underneath the rail and come out through the hole here to mount it, both sides.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. A little lower, a little lower, too low, come up, too high, too low. No, that's good, that's good. 6 inches. 6. Yeah, we got a little bit to go yet. All right, time for round 2. All right, that should be a perfect match to the other side. Let's see what happens here. The lower piece is bent and it's jigged up in place with 3 jack stands and some shims. Pretty happy with it. Now, Tony's gonna work on his lower pieces like we just talked about, and I'm gonna work on these end pieces here, I guess, to tie it all together. And then we gotta do our jack points still and stuff, but...
And yeah, and then the other things and the other things.
Always other things. The test piece finished printing. I printed it out of carbon fiber PET G, which is probably what'll be the final result, because I think it's be fine in the sun. Pops right on here. Look at that, we got a little relief for a zip tie to go through, so we can zip tie it to the tube here. And let's see if the LED strip fits in it. I drafted it at a bit of an angle here so it would have pressure. Look at that! It actually, you can't hear it on the camera probably, but it like clipped in. Got room underneath for a zip tie to go through. That'll work, baby. Now to print many more. Beautiful. Be kinda like that. So I can measure that distance from there to there, transpose that onto here, hole saw it, and it should fit. I sanded the lower tube to make it nice and matte and get rid of the rust and stuff. Now I'm gonna tack it to my upright here, and then we'll put Tony's pieces in. I like your big needles.
Thanks.
It's quite the sharp angle you got there.
Yes, it is. Who designed this?
You.
No, you designed it. I'm making what you designed.
Hey, the more contact, the stronger it's gonna be, right?
Yep. And the steeper this angle is going to be stronger if it takes a hit this way.
Yep.
So
you're just about ready to coat the ends.
yeah.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Just got it all tacked up, so you just gotta tack those in. And then we gotta do our jack point, and then that's the basis of it. With the hanging chad. Hey, does it fit? Does it fit? Did you cope it right? Look at that. A little bit of a gap, but
Yeah, a little bit of a gap. Everything's eyeball and guessing.
so it goes all the way up there. Out to here. Look at that. Good work, Tony.
Thanks.
This thing's gonna be beefy. Correction, Tony grounded a little bit because it was a little frayed, and it fits a lot better now. I want to update that for you guys, so I didn't think that Tony was bad at his job.
That's pretty nice.
Good job, Tony. Good job.
Thanks. Again.
There we go, we got the baseline of the rear done. Now what we need to do is make the jack point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a triangulated point to here. I'm just gonna go boop, boop. So two tubes in this diameter up here, and then we'll have a jack point that extends down below. And then after that, we have one more element to add, but the tubing here should go pretty quick. All right, looks like we got our triangulation done here with our jack point. That'll make changing tires in the rear a lot easier on the track. You can just slap in a jack right here, pop it up, and be good to go. One thing I want to do yet is I'm going to hop on Shaper. I'm going to design a triangular filler panel here that has our logo, which is also triangular, in the center. Then we're going to tack it into place. I think that's going to look really cool. This is what I came up with here, just a simple triangle. I did some relief cuts in the corners, and I also have our logo in the center. I should be able to export this directly onto the Wazer software, and then I have a little adapter to throw the SD card into, so let's see if I can do it all on the iPad, and then just go straight from here to that boy over there. Get my SD card here, plugged in. Let's export this file. There's all the G code for the cut. I'll tell you what, if this actually works to go to the SD card, it's gonna save me so much time being able to do all my Shaper stuff directly in the iPad down here and then be able to go right to the machine. There it is. All right, let's see how it does. All right, she finished. Let's see what we got here. My favorite part. Look at that. All right, let's pop out the logo and sand her down. It like immediately started rusting, and that's crazy. Can't get that clean of a cut with a plasma cutter. Shoo-wee! Please fit. Oh ho ho ho! albeit it's just tacked together. The bash bar is assembled and on the car. I think we need a couple tubes for extra support here and there. We'll go into that in a later video, because right now it's time to deal with the 3D prints that just finished. We're gonna see how they fit onto the tubing and put our light in and see how that looks. Go, my pretties, go! Look at that. All 30 have printed. So many of them. We got our light, we got our box full of clamps. I'm pretty excited. I don't think all of these are gonna need to be zip tied, because they'll be held in, from pressure. I'll probably zip tie every like 5th one or something like that. Actually, I'm not gonna zip tie them right now. I'm just gonna pop them on as a test fit. We're just gonna put every single one on here. What are the chances that there's the exact amount of space from this inner corner here to this inner corner here to fit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Fit 9 of these without any gaps. That like was not planned and it worked out. So I love when that stuff happens. It's great. That's not great. I might have to just space that one over a little bit. Truthfully, I have no idea if this is gonna work, but that's the fun of it, baby. That's the fun of it. Thank you, Shaper 3D, for making this week much easier. There. Ho ho ho! That's gonna look so cool! Now that I see it fully together, I think it looks, number 1, rad, and number 2, I don't know if I like it. I like the bash bar itself and the shape of it. It's made to be modeled after one of the Karmann Ghia rear bumpers with the overriders. I think we accomplished that look, but I think the light might be too modern, and it's also not bright enough. That's why we test these things. So tell me what you guys think down below. Is it too modern for the car, or is it just the right amount of edginess that it looks really cool? We have other options for taillights, obviously. Big thanks to Shaper 3D for sponsoring this week's video. Check out the link in the video description to find out more about Shaper. This software is genuinely great, guys. I really enjoy using it, and it's gonna be a part of more of our workflow moving forward because of how easy it is to get into. So check it out. Let me know what you guys think down below.
This is not what we discussed.
Thanks for hanging in the shop with us.